The Soviet Union killed an entire sea. Quick plug, like and share. Now the Aral Sea was at one point the third largest lake, covering about 68,000 square kilometers, which would put it above Lake Victoria, and shrunk by over 90% to 3,300 square kilometers, which would put it above Poyang Lake. Now as the Aral Sea degraded into the North and South Aral Seas, it fell from being the third largest lake to the 41st largest lake. But how did this happen? In short, decades of Soviet mismanagement, corruption and complacency in existing systems. Now the area which we would call the Aral Sea saw the Sirdarya and the Amudarya rivers drain into the basin. These rivers are fed by glacial melt from the Tanshan Mountains and the Pamir Mountains respectively, meaning that their flow rates are dependent on the snowfall of the previous year. As the body of water relied on the flow of the two glacial melt rivers, the rivers would shift and occasionally see the sea disappear. That said, the current situation is by no means natural. The sea has existed as an important part of the Asian world, from acting as the northern frontier of the Achaemenid Empire, the Umayyad Caliphate and the Timurid Empire. The area was home to many fishermen, but following the Russian expedition, led by Alexei Butikov in 1848, interest in the sea increased and saw steamers transported to the sea in 1851. The largest change would occur in the 1960s, following the death of Stalin. First Secretary of the Communist Party, Nikita Khrushchev, planned to use the Sirdarya and the Amudarya rivers to create white gold, or cotton fields, along with melons, cereal grains and rices, which are water-intensive crops. Notably, they were planted in a desert region. This saw the Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic become the world's largest cotton exporter in 1988. So, the project was a success then. Well, technically yes. The irrigation system was built between the 1930s and the 1960s, and can be generously described as being below ideal conditions. These canals, which included the Karakum Canal, saw anywhere from 25% to 75% of the water leak out and just evaporate away. This diversion saw between 20 to 60 cubic kilometers of water, or 20 trillion liters to 60 trillion liters of water flowing through these inefficient lines instead of into the Aral Sea, causing it to significantly shrink. From the 60s to 70s it saw the sea shrink by about 20 centimeters per year, before nearly tripling from the 70s to 80s, decreasing by 50 to 60 centimeters, and again jumping to 80 to 90 centimeters per year from the 80s to 90s. This is because the irrigation system's water demand nearly doubled from 1960 to the new millennium, but by 1987, had split into the North or Small Aral and the South or Large Aral Sea, continuing to decrease. Around 1999, the water level managed to hold steady at 53 meters above sea level. It would eventually continue to shrink, and by 2009, it had dropped so much that the sea, which was technically a saltwater lake, was a shadow of its former size. The small Aral Sea was able to keep its level to 43 meters above sea level, while the large Aral Sea was reduced to 27 meters above sea level. Now, with this said, it'd be fair to assume that High Command wasn't aware of the long-term dangers before they started, but they were. Alexandra Sirin of the Hydra Project Institute was quoted saying, "It was part of the 5-year plans, approved by the Council of Ministers and the Politburo. Nobody on the lower level would dare to say a word contradicting those plans, even if it was the fate of the Aral Sea." Some believe that the sea, which had naturally formed from the runoff of the glaciers, was an error of nature. Quote, "It is obvious to everyone that the evaporation of the Aral Sea is inevitable." A proposal was put forward to redirect the Ob River to refill the sea, but the proposal was not only expensive, but was also unfavorable with the people of the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic. Side note, the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991. Jumping to 2002, UK Ambassador Craig Murray said about the independent Uzbekistan that the shrinkage of the Aral Sea was because of the former First Secretary of Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic, and then President of Uzbekistan, until his death in 2016, President Islam Abdugalayevich Karimov's cotton policy was responsible. Quote from craigmurray.org.uk. During the 20th century, these two rivers were part of the Soviet Union. and Soviet engineers contrived to divert almost all air flow, around 110 cubic kilometers a year, to irrigate cotton fields that they planted in the desert. Today in Uzbekistan, the biggest producer, the government is still the only purchaser, and meeting cotton production targets remains a national obsession. During the harvest season, cotton employs a staggering 40% of Uzbekistan's workforce, including hundreds of thousands of school children. Every province, every canal network and every farm has its production target. Even as the old collective farms are privatized, the targets persist, and farmers and officials can lose their land and jobs for failing to meet them. And cotton still consumes most of the region's water. During October 2004, during my visit, the government declared that Uzbek cotton production had exceeded 3 million tons for the first time in several years. Ministers were interviewed on the TV, standing in cotton fields brimming with pride. Officials that had seemed uptight and nervous suddenly relaxed. The bottles of vodka came out. Nobody cared that in the process the ratchet on the Aral Sea had been given one more turn. The amount of water used here is simply insane. Today the countries around the Aral Sea, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, occupy 5 of the top 7 places in the World League table of per capita water users. Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, the two countries that take their water from the Amur Darya, use more water per head of population than any others on Earth. The Aral Sea basin is very far from being short of water. The problem is the simply staggering level of water use. End quote. The lack of crop rotation, inefficient irrigation system and excessive use of pesticides and fertilizers helped tighten the ratchet on the sea. The excessive use of pesticides and fertilizer contaminated the sea, while the lack of amendments to the soil effectively sterilized them of nutrients, which also used forced labor to harvest. The now two seas continued to shrink, increasing the salinity in the remaining water and decimated the plants and animals left. The construction of the dike Aral helped increase the water level in the North Aral region. The water levels continually shrank until it was mostly the two seas in the Gulf of Chkbaz left. The sea would occasionally rise thanks to high snowmelt, but by 2024, the two lesser seas had completely disappeared, leaving the lesser and greater Aral seas, with a few small salty ponds. The water was polluted with insecticides like lindane, which is a neurotoxin, TCGD dioxin, which causes cancer, and DDT, which causes liver damage, including cancer, nervous system damage, birth defects, and other reproductive harm. The seas are fed by glacial meltings, which are at risk due to increased temperatures leading to reduced snowfall to recharge the glaciers, meaning that the water supply will continually drop. This means that the current inefficient irrigation system will need to be replaced. This will be incredibly expensive and will likely take a while in order to completely change over. Thankfully, the current president, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, has made decent strides in reforming the country's cotton industry, something that has proved to be incredibly expensive. Thankfully, around February of 2025, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development loaned the government of Uzbekistan €240 million, roughly $250 million USD, to help upgrade the current irrigation system, with the current project having an estimated cost of $287.1 million USD. As well, the Kazakhstani government has initiated the Oasis project, which is a small part of larger USAID environmental restoration of the Aral Sea activity, which began in 2021. This will be followed by the ERAS 2, which will see reforestation efforts in Uzbekistan, which I believe is crucial as it helps act as anchors for the land to limit the encroaching desertification of the Karakum Desert. It will remain to be seen if these projects will help the slow death of the Aral Sea. But that's how the Soviets destroyed the Aral Sea, and what led to that collapse. But it's too soon to declare it completely dead yet.